mantala and go for refuge. If you don't know the words, just listen. It's just a little prayer that's, this is mostly for you, Greg. It's just a little prayer that we always say at the beginning of the teaching. It's kind of like, since the teachings are free, we should ask for it. So in Tibetan, we're asking for the teaching. You ready, Aaron?
Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamninyatayami Shridam Zaki Jognam La Jamshu Vardu Dakmi Gapsuchi Dagi Jenyengi Petsanangi Rola Sangha Drupasho Shridam Zogi Shognam Nam Janshu Vadu Dakni Gapsuchi Dagi Jinyangi Petsarangi Drola Vanjia Sangha Drupasho Shridam Zoki Shognam La Janshu Vardu Dakni Gapsuchi Dagi Jinyangi Petsanangi Drola Vanjia Sangha Drupasho. No, you're good back.
So, I don't know most of you, but I'm Nick, and I'm from New York, and I've lived out in Arizona for the last 6 years, something like that, and I've been studying pretty closely with Geshe Michael, who's the founder of this center. And I studied debate at Diamond Mountain, which was his university there, and now it's a retreat center, and I studied at Sarah Monastery in South India a little bit, studied here, and studied lots of places as well. I think maybe it would be nice to do like a 5-minute meditation just to get started. I wasn't even planning on doing that, but I haven't been into rituals in a while, and the energy feels so peaceful and nice, and I just feel like meditating for a few minutes. So I'll do a short guided meditation, something that I've been doing. Sit in a comfortable position, back straight. If you can, have your hips higher than your knees. You can slide a little towards the front of your cushion. Yeah, good. The most important is just be comfortable. It's only a couple minutes. Focus on your breath. especially the inside of your body, instead of being filled with organs and muscles and bones, just imagine that it's filled with a beautiful gold nectar. It can be light, it can be nectar. And if you were to zoom in close or closer on this nectar, you would see that every particle, every last atom that makes up this nectar is actually Manjushri's sword, flaming and glowing brightly. So if you zoom in close on these atoms, making up this beautiful gold nectar, it's all made up of billions of tiny flaming swords and books, just like Manjushri holds in his hands. Each one burning with wisdom. And the light that they're giving off makes up this gold nectar. And it's shining brightly from inside your body. To the point where you're glowing outside of your body. Just imagine that glow reaches Manjushri. And gets his attention. Because he sees your interest in wisdom, he sends light right back to you, blessing you to understand the deepest ideas, blessing you to open your mind to the wisdom of all the Buddhas. So you're just bathed in this light of his blessing. So try to get a feeling that your mind is blessed. Really absorb some wisdom here tonight. that wisdom will really be able to help you to free your mind from pain, so that you can help everyone become free. Start to deepen your breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back to the room. Sorry if I'm talking low, I'm a little tired. We did Bikram yoga today, so it really knocked me out. Aaron and I are still getting over jet lag. We just got back from Asia where we were teaching before with Hector, and then in Taiwan on our own. So, first of all, I want to say how happy I am that all of you guys are here to study debate, because it's amazing. And it's really hard to find people who are interested in debate. And it's really important. I'm really passionate about it. I think it's extremely important to growing spiritually. And we'll talk about why. So thank you for coming. And even if it's just circumstances that brought you here tonight. So how many of you guys have debated before? In the Tibetan tradition, or in the Buddhist tradition? A little bit? I know you have. Okay. Like, you familiar with it? Are you familiar with it?
Did it, yes. I did a course and I read the books and stuff.
Oh, cool. All right. Oh, I think I know you, right?
Of course, no.
Dude, it's been a really long time.
Yeah.
Great to see
True.
you. Yeah. Ram.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I'll give you a big hug later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really happy to be teaching this. So, I want to start by saying that there's a lot to learn about debate. As you can see, this is really thick, you know? So you can get this book and you can read this. That's one thing you can do. And I should do the same. I've read some of this book. It's great. It's a really, really great resource if you want to get deep into Tibetan style debate. And it's really complex and it takes a lot of time to study it, and it's really good to do this alongside taking teachings on how to do it and practicing it. So I don't think we're going to cover all this tonight. I took some notes on what I think we can cover. If you can't see it in the back, it's about that much. That's about what we can do in 2 hours. If that, actually. This class, I've taught it before in Phoenix, and I think we did it in 3 2-hour sessions, right? And so I'll just see what we can get through, and then if you guys have questions, you have Hector here, and also I'll make myself available, you know, if people want to talk about it further, because I really love debate and Tibetan logic. So I'll tell you a few things about debate, like why I think it's worth learning and why I think it's worth doing and why it's helped me, or how it's helped me in my life. Can you hear me okay back there?
I'm just checking the audio.
Okay.
It's a little fuzzy with the sound, but your level is good.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I guess I have a question for you. Why do you think we should debate? Okay. No, forget it. You can't.
Yeah, I can't answer.
Go ahead.
Well, if you try to wrap your mind around something which is complex enough, and you have somebody with you that will surprise you with different angles, it's easier to do that. The more you do that, I think the greater chance you have of stopping your own mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I think you made 2 points there. One is we're trying to understand complex ideas. We're trying to reach nirvana, right? We're trying to get our minds free from suffering. In order to do that, we have to understand pretty complex ideas because our mind has been fooled for a very long time by the way things appear to us, and that causes us pain and suffering. It's the cause of samsara. So if we can, wrap our mind around complex ideas, that should help us dispel some of the wrong ways we're seeing the world, right? So I think that's one good reason. And yeah.
I don't naturally accept a lot of the concepts that kind of surface in studying Buddhism, and I think for me, debating them and coming to terms with them that way kind of helps. I know it won't dispel all doubt, but it helps a little bit.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we're not supposed to just take anything for granted that we're taught in Buddhism. Buddha said, everything I teach, you have to test it, And he laid out 3 ways that we're supposed to test it. And Hector, I'm sure, will teach you all that if you guys come to his
next course.
And has taught you. But it's, rub it, cut it, and burn it, which means like check it against your logic, check it against what you know to be true already, what your logic tells you is true, and against what people have told you, people you trust are telling you. So, and part of that, the second one really, your logic is how well can you use your intellect to analyze what you're being told, to analyze whether that's something that's true or not. But we have to analyze everything that we're told in Buddhism. Otherwise, you're not being a good Buddhist. Just to take everything on faith is not being a good Buddhist. And I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't go with your feeling, because I was brought to this path because of my feelings about everything. I was like, I walked into 3 Jewels and I was like, this just feels so right to me, And I went to some teachings with Geshe Michael and some other teachers, and I was like, it's just changing my heart. And I think it's important to go with that. But we have to use our intellect as well as one of the main tools to further ourselves along our path to enlightenment. So yeah, we're getting good answers here. Does anybody think that the purpose of debate is to make other people look stupid and to prove that you're right? That's the number one. No. It's not that, and it gets confusing. And if you go into the monastery, I even thought about bringing you guys a video of monks debating, because they get pretty intense. They're smacking in each other's faces. Sometimes they grab each other. And I think once in a while they'll push each other's face. It gets really intense, and they're doing it like that for a reason, and they're trained to do that. Well, I mean, they probably get out of control also, but they're really, really well trained in this activity. So, it gets pretty intense. And when, in my time at Sarah, I felt the intensity of it. It feels kind of like being at Harvard or something. Like there is heavy competition happening there, and people get way into it. Anyway. The purpose of debating isn't to show how smart you are, and it's important to not get lost down that track. You gotta learn how to use the excitement when you realize that you can debate fast or prove something to somebody. Keep that going to motivate you, but always try to be coming from a place of love and trying to get to truth. So because I've seen friends of mine kind of go down that road where they won't be wrong. They refuse to be wrong in a debate. So I guess I just want to dispel that. I want to help everybody. If you want to debate, good. Be willing to be wrong. It's fun. Be willing to let the other person be right. Especially if they are. And it's really good. It's really good to have the skill to debate your way out of it. I have a friend. He's so good at debating that no matter how right I am, I can't really beat him. But that holds him back in certain ways, in my opinion. So yeah, I say that some of the main reasons, everything that you guys said is right. And I think it's also, at the heart of it, it's that we're trying to help each other get to truth. And we're trying to get to what is the ultimate truth, and we're trying to see what we really believe is true in our own minds and tear it apart with every tool that we have available. And so in order to get enlightened, we have to use everything that we have at our disposal, because it's very difficult, right? But that's our goal, is to become enlightened beings. to become free from samsara. Is everybody familiar with all these terms? I'm just kind of throwing out samsara and nirvana. Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't. So we're trying to free our minds from this, and since we've been trapped in this state for a very long time, it's quite difficult. We have to use everything at our disposal. That means we do certain things with our breath, right? Like many of us are yogis. We practice breathing exercises. We practice twisting and bending backwards and headstands. These are tools at our disposal to help us become enlightened. We meditate and try to get our mind still and calm. This is another tool that's at our disposal to help us become free from pain. Another tool is our intellect, and it's a very powerful one, you know? Because in many ways we're just like all the rest of the primates on this planet, but we have these extremely powerful intellects, and because of that, we're able to make a lot more spiritual progress than your average ape. Or so the Lamrim says. We're trying to get to truth. Truth, according to what I've learned from Buddhism and from Hinduism, it's not necessarily something that you can express in words. Actually, from Taoism too. We were just staying in China, in the place where the Tao Te Ching was spoken. I thought it was very powerful. And Taoism also, it's like, you know, that which can be spoken is not the Tao. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's all referring to the same thing. And so I'm not, just because I'm a big fan of logic and debate, I'm not saying that. In fact, I'll say that you cannot express the ultimate truth in words. That seems to be the case. But since we have this powerful tool called an intellect, let's use it to try to force our mind into that ultimate state. And that's why debate became such an important part of the monastic education, and specifically in the Tibetan monastic education, specifically in the Gelugpa. But now that His Holiness has kind of spread it out to all the different sects of Tibetan Buddhism. And actually, just so you guys know, is everybody familiar with the term Madhyamaka Prasangika? Upper middle way. It means middle way consequence school. And that's the highest school of Buddhism in the ancient Indian schools of thought. So it means the middle way, right? And it's the consequence school of the middle way. And consequence really has to do with debate in a way. It has to do with understanding the consequences of what you believe and how absurd it really, the absurdity that it really points to. And it's all to show you that the world that you hold to as existing in a certain way could not possibly exist that way. And we can use logic and debate to open our minds to see, and hopefully one day to experience, that the world is really, the ultimate nature of the world is really some other way. And so that's why it's called the consequence school. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Tell me if I'm losing you, and I'll go back over. Another thing that sorry, go ahead.
That's in the Tibetan literature.
Actually, the middle way consequence school is from ancient Indian philosophical system. No, it's Buddhist. But so Buddhism started in India. The Buddha was Indian.
Is it in the Pali Canon?
The middle way school is not in the Pali Canon. Good question. Yeah, it's post Pali Canon. It's Sanskrit tradition, and it's Mahayana. So the middle way school is Mahayana Buddhism. You know, it's said to be from India, but it's not taught in India anymore. It wasn't for a while. Went to China, Tibet, Korea, Japan. Okay. So one other thing that I think is kind of interesting about debate is that it also trains your mind to think really quickly and to think really clearly. Because that's why I want to show you the video. Because when the monks debate, they're like up on their feet, and then they're clapping in each other's faces, you know, like over and over again. That's when they start pushing each other. And, you know, it's really intense, and they're forcing each other to think extremely quickly.
Just ask this now. Are there certain gestures which are taught as part of the debating?
Totally, there are. Yeah. Would you like me to show them?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll show them in a minute. Okay. Yeah. I was debating in my mind whether or not to show it. Wasn't sure But I think it's interesting, so I'll go over them real quick.
It's difficult when you have to debate with yourself.
Yeah. It's really good. I mean, I know a lot of people here study with Hector, and a lot of people in the city study with Hector, and I think that it's really important to get together, separately from the classes and try to actually debate.
When we were in China, there was this group of people that got together to debate the course we were covering.
Oh, good.
And I heard wonderful stories about how deep they got to, and all the questions that came up because of the debate. So there's a fervor and a need, and we haven't really taught debate very deeply here. So that's why we're excited to have you.
At Diamond Mountain, we used to stay up all night. It was amazing and crazy. So I'll finish this point, and then I'll show the gestures. The point what I'm getting at is that we say that the world that we experience is seeds ripening in our minds, right? We create karma with everything that we do, say, and think. And then the experience that we have is that karma coming back to us. It's like seeds that are planted in your mind, and they ripen, and it projects out a reality that appears to be separate from you, but actually it's being projected from your mind. This is all happening really, really fast. And in order to have direct perceptions, right? Like the direct perception of dependent origination basically is seeing directly how reality is being projected outward from your mind. And since it's happening so fast, it's very useful to sharpen your mind and sharpen your ability to perceive things quickly and clearly. So debating is sharpening that faculty. Like just being able to answer questions quickly isn't necessarily going to make your mind fast enough to perceive dependent origination directly, but it sure is going to help. And I think the more repetition you have, the more experience you have in answering questions quickly, thinking fast, the more likely you're going to be able to actually catch yourself creating the universe. Now, short of that, because that's a pretty lofty goal, it also helps you in situations in your life if you can think quickly and clearly. For example, when your boss is screaming at you, and then you're debating, your boss is screaming at you, and your reaction is, do I yell back? Do I defend myself? Do I tell him what he is? And then most of us do that or want to do that. And if it's not your boss, it's your partner. If it's not your partner, it's somebody else in your life who you can't help it yourself but to put them in their place. So the more strong your logic is, the more quickly you'll be able to catch yourself and refrain, at least for more seconds.
So, you're saying that debate trains you to think more quickly. Does it simultaneously train you to think compassionately in the midst of thinking quickly?
That's a good question. I think that depends on you and how convinced you are that it's worthwhile to be compassionate.
That's sort of the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's kind of basically the next point that I was going to get to. So, I wasn't just going to talk about compassion, but just the whole path in general. This kind of relates to the point that you brought up. That's like you can use these ideas, you use this system of logic and debate to convince yourself of what to do, what decisions to make. And it's another way to analyze all the decisions you make in your life. So for me, it's been particularly useful to come to decisions about my spiritual path, right? Because that's the main thing I do in my life. And so at a certain point, I convince myself that not only does it feel better to be compassionate to people, not only is it a more harmonious way to live, but I also logically have convinced myself that it's the most useful and intelligent way to live. Because by feeling more love, by acting more compassionately, I'm actually creating the best karma that I can possibly create. And by doing that, it's going to get enlightened faster. So not only am I going off my feeling that it's better to live that way, but I've convinced myself using logic that it's more strategic, And so when you learn it, the system of debate, you'll see how you can kind of use it in your own mind to question ideas that you have and try to examine your options and just see what are the most intelligent things to do or the most intelligent ways to be or something like that. so debate can help you build more compassion. And that's probably a lot of how it's helped me in my life. For me, like, it helps me make the decisions about, like, going to live closer to my guru, you know, and serve them more closely. Because I had to mull it over. There's a lot of factors. I can make a big list of pros and cons. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. We live in Phoenix, Arizona. And as far as probably both of us are concerned, it's everything that's wrong with this country, and it's a terrible place to live. So it's like, yeah. I had to come to a strong logical conclusion that it was the smartest decision to make. And my reason for being there is to be close to my Lama. So then within that, it's like, well, what's this going to do for me? What's that going to do for the world, really? And so I kept coming up with reasons why I should make this decision or that decision. It ended up pointing me very clearly to, like, why would I do anything other than try to be around my teacher who knows a lot more than me and has things to share with me and wants to help me? You know, why would I go be somewhere else? But I had to use logic, the whole system of logic, to help myself break down obstacles from doing that. Clear? Okay. Yeah. And it also, debate helps us clarify what we really believe and what we don't believe. You know? Because in Buddhism, a lot of the teachings are based on, well, then your future life will be like this. You know? Or your past, this is because your past life. Do you believe in past, Greg, do you believe in past lives? Yeah, do you believe in future lives? Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. Why? Yeah. You know, so then, if pressed, you might or might not believe in that. You know? If you're pushed into a very uncomfortable situation, but given the choice of, you know, doing something that's going to physically or mentally hurt you a lot in the moment, but you know it's going to benefit your future life a lot, right? Say somebody told you to hold a lighter under your hand. Don't do this, by the way. And this won't really help your future life, but it's just an example. If you held it under your hand, you're definitely going to have $100 billion in your future life, but you have to bear it for 25 minutes. You know, how much do you believe in future lives then? Not as much. Right, exactly. So when pressed, it's questionable how much we really believe in these ideas. If we find ourselves standing on a logical foundation rather than just believing something because it sounds cool, because the person who told it to us looks and sounds really cool and convincing, you know, like they have an awesome beard or whatever. You know, that can work for a little while, and it can help us along our path as well. But if you're standing on a foundation of logic, it's gonna be a lot more sturdy when the poop hits the fan. Okay, so that's another reason why debating is great. But you guys are already here, so I don't need to convince you anymore. So I think we'll just jump in. Has anybody heard of a syllogism? Yeah, cool. Okay, so a syllogism is like a logical statement. Tibetan logic, I believe, I think many people believe, but it's not clear, it has its roots in Aristotelian logic. It's very similar in a lot of ways to what the Greeks were studying. So I'm going to get into it. Oh, by the way, the actual debate format that the Tibetans are using, you can learn from this book. You know, so if you really want to get into all of the nitty-gritty, it's here and in other resources. Like I said, I'm doing a little bit less than that here today, 2 hours. And what my teacher Geshe Michael created for us is a somewhat stripped down version for us to be able to practice immediately in English, a format of debate. And it contains everything you need to be able to go out, start debating, use logic to analyze everything you've ever been taught, and get into full-on debates with other people. There's more you can learn, and like more complicated terminology if you're really into that kind of thing. But I feel the way that I'm going to present it to you here is very clear, very useful for people who don't speak Tibetan, first of all, and who are interested in just learning the rules and not necessarily all the ins and outs of dialectics. So I'm going to describe to you what's a three-part logical statement. Three-part logical statements. By the way, for those of you who aren't necessarily Buddhists, this is very useful just for everyday life. And that's why I wanted to come. Just watching how your mind thinks about things and being able to make decisions more clearly. Part 1, subject. Part 2, oh don't worry, I didn't forget that you asked for the gestures. I'll come to that in a minute. Assertion. I mean, I did forget until just now. Part 3, reason. Okay. So, anytime in philosophy, when we're putting forth an idea, specifically in Buddhist philosophy, our statement is going to consist of these 3 parts. And if you notice, after you learn this, you'll notice that your mind is quite often using all 3 of these parts into whatever, reasoning you're trying to do that day. Or, I should eat pancakes. Consider me. I should eat pancakes because they're really delicious, Because, we discuss these things all the time because we try to eat healthy, but then pancakes. So that's what the subject, what thing are you talking about? Okay, the assertion, what about that thing? The reason, why is that true about that thing? Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to do an example. Subject is Greg. The assertion about Greg. Erin, can you tell me something about Greg?
He's tough.
Greg is tough. Erin, tell me why is Greg tough?
Because he likes pancakes.
Okay.
Real men eat pancakes.
Okay. He likes pancakes. Okay, so this subject is Greg. That's clear, right? So in a debate, in English, I would say consider Greg. Because in Tibetan they say something similar to that.
Right.
And I think that's a really wonderful English translation of it. In Tibetan, just so you guys have heard it, I would say Greg Che-chen. That means Greg, this great thing. But in English, really great way to translate it is consider Greg. Greg Che-chen. Consider Greg. The assertion, he is tough. So that's something I'm saying about Greg. Is it true? We don't know. It's not necessarily true. It's just something that I'm saying about him. So I'd like a reason. So Erin gave us a reason. Because he likes pancakes. So reason, it makes sense. It's always going to start with because. Pretty much. Okay? And another thing about the reason, it's pretty much always, it has to relate to the subject. And I'll explain that in more detail. I guess, I'll explain it right now. Because he likes pancakes. The reason always has to relate to the subject. I can't say, because that yoga mat is blue. That's totally nonsensical. Okay? So, is this a correct reason? It's not a correct reason, right?
No.
Why not?
If you can somehow link liking pancakes to being tough, I think that would be a fairly long string of logic. And then also determine that Greg really does like pancakes. Then you could say that Greg is tough because he likes pancakes.
We're going to get to that. Have you studied debate a little bit before? Or a lot? Okay. So we're going to get there.
Study prepositional logic.
Okay. off the bat, we don't think this looks like a correct reason. Because for this to be a correct reason, everybody who likes pancakes would have to be tough. And I can say from my own personal experience, I like pancakes and I'm not very tough. You know? So I know that it's not true. You know? So, and I'm just going to tell you this now. To come up with a correct reason is very difficult. To make one of these a three-part logical statement where it's true and the reason is correct is very difficult. So I'm going to challenge you guys in a few minutes here. Maybe we'll get into like little groups to come up with correct reasons. And I'm not saying it's not possible, but just don't feel bad if you have a hard time actually coming up with one. All right, so now I'll just digress for a moment into the whatever you call it, the gestures. So in a debate, here, that's why I brought this in. The monks have a mala on their wrist. They have the left hand out in front of them. First they'll pull the mala back, step the left foot up, stomp down, and slap the left hand with the right hand. Okay? So that's how you do it. So I would say, consider Greg. He likes pancakes. You know? And then you'd be like, why? Why do you say he likes? Oh, sorry. Consider Greg. He's tough. And you'd be like, why is he tough? Because he likes pancakes. You know? And that's like, so that's just kind of how it goes. And every single part of this has meaning. I don't remember it all. You can find it all in this book. This has to do with closing the door to samsara. The left hand represents wisdom. The right hand represents method, meaning compassion or love. When you bring the right hand to the left hand, this is the union of compassion and wisdom. This has to do with pulling back the veil of ignorance when you're pulling the mala back on your arm. And what's the other part of that? Oh yeah. This also, I think the left hand being positioned down like that is a symbol of holding closed the door to rebirth. Okay. And the stomp, I don't remember, so it just gets your attention. There's probably something to it. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But that's what the monks are always doing. So, like, I would sit on the steps at night and just watch them debating over and over again. And they go fast, like really, really fast.
And so one person starts and they say that, and then the other person goes on.
So I'll show you how it begins. So let's say you're sitting in this debate crowd, right? And they're always trying to be all like cool and tough about it too. So I'll just like pretend I'm gonna walk by and I'll be like, Ji Chitar Che Che in Tibetan. That means like, hey, I got one for you. Something like that, okay? Like, hey, I got one for you. And then I'd be like, consider pancakes. They're delicious. Okay? Actually, in the monastery, they started a little bit differently, but for the purposes of the way we're going to learn to debate, it's like that, okay? Consider pancakes. They're delicious. And if you don't agree with me, and we're going to get to this in a minute, you would say, why do you say that? Or if you do agree with me, you'd be like, duh. Duh is literally the Tibetan answer for I agree. They say duh. So everybody say it.
Duh.
Duh.
Come on.
Duh.
It just means like, yeah, everybody knows they're delicious. Like, why are you trying to prove that to me? Okay? Actually, when I was in Sarah Monastery, my birthday came, and it was very difficult to find a birthday cake, so my friends who I was there with made me a cake out of pancakes. And they bought Nutella, and they put they put jelly in between the layers of pancakes, and then they smeared the whole thing with Nutella. It was incredible. So anyway, but I digress. Everybody's going to leave here all starving.
Pancakes for sure.
Yeah. Okay. We've been talking about them a lot, like yesterday or today. Okay. So
So if the person disagrees,
then you say chi-cheer. That means why? Chi-cheer. You can even go like that. Like, so there's an attacker and a defender in a debate. The attacker stands, the defender sits in a formal debate. And this is how we would do it at Diamond Mountain. But most Westerners just like sit at the coffee shop, debate. But it's really, really awesome to do it the formal way, and it's really awesome to do it with the debate formula, which we're beginning to learn. So you would say, now there's 4 traditional answers, okay? The defender only would say 4 things, basically, and that's it, okay? And it's all on me, the attacker, to prove everything to you and to do more of the, actually both of us have to do the thinking, but I have to like come up with the reasons, come up with the assertions, like trying to weave a logical pattern to convince you of something or to show you the error in the way that you're thinking about something. And ultimately to show you the contradiction in the way that you think about the world. And that's the consequence of
The important things.
The other 2 answers.
We're getting it. So the first one is de.
Yeah.
Means yeah. Alright, can we move on? You know? The second one is chi-chi, which is like, why would you say that? So at that point, I've only given you a subject and an assertion. Consider Greg, he's tough. And at that point, all you can say is de or chi-chi. Okay, that's the first 2 answers. So you'll say one or the other. So if you say why, right? Then I would give you, this isn't a good reason, right? I'll give you another reason. Because he's my brother, that's why he's tough. So I made him tough. That's a better answer. Then I've given you a reason, right? At that point, I've given you a reason. There's a 3-part logical statement. Let's try it. Because he's my brother. Now, at this point, we have a 3-part logical statement. There's 2 more answers, and in order to get to one of those 2 answers, we have to run the 3 tests. Okay? Does everybody have this? The 3 parts of a logical statement? In Asia, anything we would write on the board or like have a slide of, there's their phones out taking pictures. It's pretty smart. Nobody takes notes. Writing is totally outdated. Yeah, feel free. Yeah, really good. Like I see you don't feel like writing, but I still don't want you to forget this.
Alright.
Okay, you got it. Read tests. So I'm going to be referencing, actually I'll rewrite that here. Subject, assertion, reason. I'm going to be referencing this. The first test is 3 true of 1. So you have to analyze any logical statement. Is 3 true of 1? I can tell by the confusing look on Greg's face, he does not know what I'm
I get it now.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the reason true of the subject? Greg, is it true that he's my brother? Is it true?
Yeah.
Okay. Passes the first test. If I said,
Wait a second. Can I ask a question? You said after the first 2 things, there are 2 things the defender wrongly can say.
yeah,
Okay, now, are we now getting into the 3rd thing the defender can say?
yeah. Well, I'm going to describe the 3 tests. And then if it doesn't pass the tests, if it doesn't pass the first test, then there's something that the defender can say. If it doesn't pass the 2nd and 3rd test, then there's something else the defender
So
can
it's
say.
up to the defender to ask himself this first question.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Yeah. It's going to be clear to everybody, like as we go through it, but you're already getting it. Yeah. Like this is what the. I mean, they both have to be thinking about this, of course. You know, all they have to do is think about these 3 tests.
Right.
The attacker, they have everything they say. They have to be thinking about these 3 tests, and they have to be thinking about the next thing they're going to say also. You know, like where can they go with that? So at first, debating is actually a lot more challenging for the attacker. You know, but I urge you to just not be afraid and just try to do it anyway, and just don't be afraid to look like a buffoon because it's because nobody's judging you. Because if you have the cojones to stand up and try to do it in the first place, that's pretty amazing. So the first thing that we analyze is the reason true of the subject? In this example, is it true that he's my brother? Yes, it's true. I'll give you a faulty reason. Because he's a tyrant. Is it true of Greg that he's a tyrant?
Well, nobody knows.
We don't know what to
It's
say.
just not true.
It's just not true. You know, tires are rubber. He's mostly water and carbon. He's totally not a tire. Okay, if it's not true, right?
Tires will be the
What?
maybe tires will be out of water in the car.
No, he's not a tire.
He's not a tire.
Go, Jimbo.
Yeah.
We'll give you that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But that's how you gotta be, right? Like when you're debating, it's true. Like you start picking apart everything. And always when we do these classes, everybody starts getting really tedious and picking apart everything. Sometimes you're like, okay, just hold on. I'm not trying to trick you. Just he's not a tire. We're starting with the basics. Okay. It's not true. If 3 is not true of 1, at that point the defender would say, "Tak maju." That's Tibetan. Tak maju. And that means the reason is not true of the subject. And it's really cool to say it in Tibetan because it's all contained in that little phrase. But if you don't feel like debating with the Tibetan phrases, you can just say, he's not a tyrant. You know, it's not true of Greg that he's a tyrant. Okay? So that's the first test. You guys are sharp. It's like, I should have never gone this fast. Second test. If 3, then 2.
Yeah.
Got it?
Does 2 follow from 3?
Yeah. Just, yeah. If,
If we were a tire, would that make him tough?
yeah. If something's a tire, is it tough? Generally, I mean, tires have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say so in a way. You know, tires have to be tough. You know, they're always rolling on the road. What if I said tiger? Tigers are definitely tough.
In order
It doesn't pass the first test, but consider Tigger.
Tigger's not.
I know. He's not tough. So consider Tigger. He's tough because he's a tiger. I mean, this is getting a little complicated. Maybe if he needed to be, he could be. I don't know. He's a Winnie the Pooh character.
It's not a real tire.
Yeah, it's a good point. Anyway, I just like to have fun, sometimes to my detriment. This would imply, if this is true, it has to mean that everything that's a tiger is tough. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It would have, let me give maybe a,
Yeah.
I think if you stick with first thing, Greg and brother.
Yeah, that was a good one.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'll go back.
This one being your brother just.
Consider Greg. He's tough. That is my brother. well,
Does that follow?
this would imply that everyone who's my brother is tough. Well, that could be. I mean, he is my only brother, so then maybe everyone who's my brother is tough. But then you have to say that just because someone's my brother, they're tough.
Yeah.
It's not really a great example because it's a little bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to something a little bit more.
What's your question?
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll keep the question.
No, go ahead.
They're just, it's easier for you to keep.
Okay. Consider 3 joules. I'm going to give you a correct reading. It's in New York State. Because it's in Manhattan. Okay, does it pass the first test?
Yes.
3 joules is in Manhattan. 3 is true of 1. Does it pass the second test?
Yes.
It does. So everything that's in Manhattan is in New York State.
Yes.
Everything.
Everything.
Every single thing that's in Manhattan is in New York State.
Single dash.
Okay, in a debate they're going to do that. They're like, "Are you sure that everything that's in Manhattan?" They'll make you feel like you should doubt yourself. What about the United Nations? Is that New York State? Yes, it is.
Yes. Actually, it actually is in New York State, but it's not part of New York State.
It still stands
It's a
true.
weird
It's
thing. It's a
in
weird
New York
thing.
State.
It is in New York State.
Yeah.
That raises the question.
It's in Manhattan. Okay.
That
The
raises the
embassies are
question
not
I
part of it.
didn't ask, but I'll ask now. So what about semantics, terminology like brother, in?
Yeah, it's extremely important.
With respect, how does that, those issues arise, do those issues arise within the syllogism, and how is that dealt with? But maybe you want to save that for afterwards.
No,
It's a digression, really.
It's not. It's a really important question, and it's relevant anytime.
Okay. I'm not describing.
So, as two people debating each other, we have to agree on certain definitions. And for certain words like in, if we don't know what the other person means, we will either stop the debate or it will become part of the debate to define and clarify exactly what we mean by that.
Yeah.
Okay? So, first of all, many Buddhist monks already agree on so many definitions because they're studying the same texts all day long. Right? So many things are kind of a given. Yet they'll still, push each other to question their ideas of how you define what. But we always have to have we call it in this philosophical system, we call it a common locus. Right? It means we have to be, there has to be certain axioms or something that we agree on, so that we can move forward. And in the case of this debate, we may have to debate it. Like, let's say you say, just because something's in Manhattan doesn't mean it's in New York. The United Nations is in Manhattan, it's not in New York. And I'm like, then we'll get into it. Like, consider the United Nations. They are in New York because everything around them is New York. Or, I don't know. I'm not prepared to debate that at the moment.
So we could have a debate within the debate.
Oh, and that's what it is. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
A debate is a series of syllogisms. Could go all night. One syllogism after another. And if we have time, I'll try to show you how we could go through a couple levels of it. But this is just the most fundamental thing. Yeah. So this is the basic building block of a debate. One syllogism. The debate's going to consist of syllogism after syllogism.
So one of the big advantages of this is forces them to memorize texts
Got it? Yeah.
to the letter.
Yeah. And you cannot bring any paper on the debate ground.
Yeah.
It's all in your head. You can't come to a debate and start
Right.
Yeah, and start
With the dictionary.
Yeah. So it's like illegal in the debate ground. I time out and you just be like, kicked off the debate rather than try to come up with some kind of text. And a lot of times people are trying to use scriptural references as a proof.
Right.
And like, if you don't know it, you either take their word for it or you don't. But like, let's say I'm trying to use some kind of scriptural reference as a proof for you, right? And you don't accept it. You don't. Let's say I'm using the Quran, right? And you don't believe that what the Quran says is true. You believe the polycanon, right? I'm just saying. And you're like, I don't accept it. And I'm like, I got to go back to the drawing board. I think of another proof, a different reason. I can't offer that. I can't be like, because the Quran says so. Even if I believe it, you'd be like, I don't care if the Quran says so.
Right.
I believe in the Old Testament. Show me something from that says it, and then I'll buy what you're saying, or whatever.
It's easier to find common ground.
Can you
defend it.
disprove the Old Testament to what credibility to the Quran?
Sorry?
Like if somebody, like in this example, somebody goes like, well, no, I don't believe the Quran, I believe in the Old Testament, find something there. Can you disprove the Old Testament to say, like, I don't need to find it there because it's wrong here?
That's a bigger
No.
deal. Yeah, they said in ancient India, if you could really shatter somebody's beliefs and completely disprove their whole philosophical system, they were required to join your philosophical system. So if you could disprove somehow that the Quran was even written or something, and then prove that the Old Testament is 100% correct, then sure. That would probably be like a 25-year debate or something.
Sure, yeah.
But in theory, I suppose that would work. You know, if you can convince them to accept your system, then sure.
Or you can just do like Alice and Baba and cause an earthquake.
Or
Sure.
that. That's beyond the
Right,
scope
yeah.
of this class. No, but I think what's important here to talk about is if I'm trying to prove something to you that you already accept, then I'm wrong. For some reason, that's like some weird technicality. That makes me wrong. So if I'm like, Aaron, you're wearing a white shirt. And you're like, why? I'm like, because I can see you're wearing a white shirt. You know, if I'm trying to prove to her that she's wearing a white shirt, and she already knows she's wearing a white shirt, and I just keep trying to prove it, then my logic is just somehow it's considered wrong, even though it might be fine. You avoid proving something to somebody that they already exist. On the flip side of that, you can't use sources that people don't accept, and you can't use logic that they don't accept. You know, you have to find what they. If you want to debate with a Gnostic Christian, you should probably try to learn their scriptures and try to understand like where they're coming from.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't go out with somebody else.
But yeah, you can't use Buddhist ideas to prove them if they don't accept it.
Right.
It's futile and it's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the flip side of that, if you do convince them, as I said, you convince them that they're completely wrong, then back in the day they were forced to join your system of belief. That's how it was like in the London monastery back in the day. All these guys, you know, there's stories of like Naropa was the gatekeeper for the London monastery because he was such a badass debater. And like these guys would come up and try to, because they wanted to convert the London monastery, you know. But he would like just one after another like destroy everybody. Anyway, there's lots of cool
What do you
stories.
say if 2 fails?
Sorry?
If 3 then 2 is not true, that fails.
Okay, that's where we're at right now. The first I'm going to tell you, the third. So you guys all understand the second test?
Yes.
Yeah.
This has to prove this. You know? Great, you guys are freaking sharp. You got it? I know you do. You already know. Alright. Third one. If not 2, then not 3.
Ooh. Wow.
If something's not in New York State, it's not in Manhattan. Does this pass the third test?
Oh, sure.
Okay. It's harder to think that way, though, right? It's confusing for a second. Wait a minute. I have never seen a situation or something where this contradicts. I believe that they will always hold. Okay? Where one passes the second test and not the third, or passes the third test and not the second. If it fails the second test, it will fail the third test. If it fails the third test, it will fail the second test. I mean, I'm open if you can think of something, but I haven't yet seen that.
If two or three is stated in the form of a negative, maybe that way there might be.
Come up with one and email it to me.
I don't know, I'm just.
Oh yeah. From what I understand, I'll just say it, and you guys can think about what also like your ideas of what the reasoning could be to have this third test present. I think it's to help train your mind to think in terms of negatives, because in Buddhism we have to think in terms of negatives a lot. You know, we think about impermanence, we think about emptiness, and mostly it's to train your mind to think about emptiness, lacks. You know, so I believe it's to give your mind a little bit of extra mental calisthenics. So do it. I mean, try it. It's useful.
So if you said two, if you said 3 joules is not in Connecticut.
3 joules. So you want to say, consider 3 joules. It's not in Connecticut?
Right.
Okay.
This is not that.
Why?
Because it's in Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, it still works.
Of
Because
course.
then you have a double negative.
Right.
Does the second and third test both balance?
Consider 3 joules. It's not in Connecticut because it's in Manhattan. Does it pass the first test? 3 joules is in Manhattan. Does it pass the second test? If something's in Manhattan, it's not in Connecticut.
That's true.
Right? Does it pass the third test?
Not to, then
If something's not in Connecticut,
it's in Connecticut.
meaning if it's in Connecticut,
Then not in Manhattan.
then it's not in Manhattan.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So in a way, this seems like a
Very
just
difficult. It's very difficult.
if not to, then not for it. But not in Manhattan.
I think it happens, but it's rare.
Sure, I mean, I would love to know. I'm open to it. I just
No,
personally.
because it could be not in Connecticut and also not be in Manhattan.
So it's good. If it's not in Connecticut, that means it's in Connecticut, right? That's not. And if something's
Well,
in
that's one interpretation.
So if something's not in Manhattan, but it still passes. Right, I see what you're saying. It's still true, but it doesn't prove it. You need to do the second test to prove it. Yeah, it's true. It doesn't prove it. Yeah, right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's still true, but it doesn't prove it. Okay, let's go back to. Okay. Anyway, those are the 3 tests. If something doesn't pass this test, typically when you're debating, you're gonna consider. You would say these. You would never say this one out loud, right? So if something doesn't pass this test, you say in Tibetan, something that sounds like Yapa Shun. And if you go and tell your friend who studies Tibetan Buddhism that you took this class with me, and then I said that Kyapa Majung means just because the reason doesn't prove the associate, they're going to be like, no, it means, because they read this book, and they're going to be like, no, it means there is no pervasion. But like, and that's how they say it, you know.
Yeah.
But like,
Nice.
what the hell does that mean? Like, you know, like, we don't talk like that. I mean, I've never said the word pervasion in my life besides in this context. So, and I'm not saying it's a bad translation. I know where it's coming from. It's pervasion. Like it
doesn't pervade.
It's not all pervasive. Yeah.
It's not true of all.
This reasoning doesn't pervade within the assertions. That's how we don't need to talk too much about that. But yes, that's a common translation of it because the kyap means pervade in Tibetan.
Right.
But what it means in this context is just because something's in Manhattan, that doesn't mean it's in New York. Okay? I mean, maybe this is true, but that's what it means. So when you're debating, if I'm debating with you, right, I'll be like, I give you this as a reason. So let's say I give you something else as a reason, so that it doesn't pass. 3 joules. It's in New York because it has cool tankas.
Yeah.
Well, let's run the first test on this. Consider 3 joules. It's in New York. Why do you say that? Let's say you don't know it's in New York, so you say why? I say, oh, because it has cool tankas. Does it pass the first test?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 joules has really cool tankas. And from Nepal. Does it pass the second test? Does everything with cool tankas exist in New York? No, right? Something can have cool tankas and not be in New York. Consider the country of Tibet. Has lots of cool tankas. So, in this circumstance, you would say, just because it has cool tankas doesn't mean it's in New York. Okay? Kyapa Manjum. So that's the 4 answers. De and Chi-Chir come after the second part. If this one's not true, it's either because of that or this. So you'll say Tak Madrup in this instance and Kyapa Manjum in this instance. Cool? Alright. Good. Does anybody want to take a picture of this? Okay. Awesome. Wow, we're like making amazing progress. Can't believe it. Alright, let's try breaking up into little groups. Are you cold?
What?
Grab one of those
Yeah,
blankets?
many blankets.
Greg, do you want to go? Greg's got it.
They make you warm.
Yeah, he's got it. We got it. Okay. You know what? So let's do this. I want to see you guys come up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So let's make some groups. So Ron, Aaron, and sorry, what's your name? Jacqueline. We've met before, I think. Can you guys come up with try to come up with the correct reason, okay? You guys do a group. We've done this together before, didn't we? Back in the day. So Greg, Sama, and Jimba. Can you guys try to work together to come up with the correct reason? And then Javier and Philip and Hector when he comes back. And can you three? Cliff, Rachel, Tasha. Can you guys try to come up with the correct reason? Just sit together for a minute. Try to come up with something that passes all 3 tests. This is going to be invaluable to your debate career for the future. Having done this little exercise. I'll go get Hector. You guys can work together without him. He's probably done.
Any subject.
So, what would you consider a new
Correct reason.
The correct
Help you
reason.
come up with the
Something
correct
that
reason.
passes all 3 tests. Okay?
Subject or not?
Subject, assertion, and a reason that will pass all 3.
Oh, I see.
Consider anything.
Beautiful.
It doesn't have to be Buddhist.
Yeah.
Just,
And you've got a good
okay?
one.
We all have a good one here.
Let's have a look.
What?
Correct reason.
Who's who? Who's been subject?
Okay.
No, we're
So,
not
topic
the right
test.
reason. We're not debating yet.
Wait,
Right, we need the subject answer.
They're definitely cute. I would
Not
say
everybody feels that way.
maybe not.
He just told me I have to do the reason.
I can do it.
He sit down and give me the reason.
That's right.
Sure.
I don't think
Should we go all out or should we
I think you can definitely find
try to
something.
keep it simple?
I
Try to find something that's less
so we
subjective.
can try and figure the system, and then we can.
You have to be able to say with
Okay.
definitive
Should we do that?
definition.
Sure.
Like
Consider the
Like you
subject.
have to be able to say all things that are cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You said
consider the
subway.
subway. The subway
Well,
is
this one, for
near
example,
city.
The subway or the
It's not
subway
subjective.
system?
This is
Yes, this one. But when you're debating like ideas.
Right, so
and
when I'm
thoughts
right,
and
subject is the subway,
Your interpretation.
the New York City subway.
Oh, okay. So now you've got to come up with some assertion.
Yeah, the New York City subway system, that's my subject.
Yeah.
You've got to have some assertion about that.
Well, we won't do too much into that yet, but I know what you're saying. But
It sucks.
you clarify. Like, there's a lot of clarifying stuff in here, but you can find little things, you know, that you can agree on. So try to think of something though that's where it will pass this test. Because you can't say that all cute things are good.
We want to pass on.
Yeah, you want to.
We want to make our point, so we have.
You want to come up with one that's going to pass all three tests.
Yeah.
So I'm not sticking with it sucks.
And maybe try to shy away from too much very subjective things.
No, this is pretty cool.
Okay,
This-
okay.
We live in New York, this is talking about the subway system.
That's not subjective.
Right on. Okay.
No, you.
Sort of a circular definition.
Not all
of
things
it.
for the course, so we'll dry that.
That would be dry like
You put it all out underwater.
For sure. Not
That's my.
Let's see. I shy away from giving
You live in here?
things that are easy, but it's on
Alright,
time.
well, I'll talk to you.
Let's see.
You guys have to think of a correct answer.
So,
You guys are right?
could the subway be better? Sure, that's true. Anything can be better.
Yeah, so maybe passes one.
What?
You can't really set up a cloud.
You guys are right?
The subway, I think we better.
Because it could be better, it sucks.
If you put a cloud actually
I don't
in
know
water,
if
it just turns to
it
water.
stands true for everything.
That's not
Because there are things that are amazing.
We have to agree on
Put a
something.
cloud under people.
We have to agree on what's happening.
Yeah,
Everything that sucks could be better.
right, but not everything that could be better sucks. Like for example, my life could be better,
So
but it's
three-
also
One leg would be better.
People say with air,
Yeah, that's cool.
with air and water, it would be a bubble in it.
So let's have three, then.
One more minute. One more minute.
so if it could be better, it sucks.
Yeah, you're right.
But not necessarily.
Things that want to be better.
The third part.
Wait a second, I got it. It's not working.
That's more precise.
Yeah, you're thinking it, but it's not. No water vapor is cloud. Water vapor is air, gas.
So let's see.
Cloud is minute drops of
Overcrowded.
So, but in any case,
Sure. I'll take that.
so cloud is basically be like a bubble.
Oh, okay, no. So now you're talking definition. You can't go circular
At rush hour.
because water, because you can,
Because
a dog,
city
water, instead of
population
water
has
is wet.
grown at a
What's the
rate.
definition of water?
I guess that's
It's just taking a definition.
Was it lakes or what?
You know,
Was
you
there
get the
water?
straw.
Yeah, you could do that.
There's
Too long of a
a-
reason.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the
That was-
definition. Otherwise, you're
You're
just giving a
making it-
definition.
It's
You know what I mean?
Russian.
But it's
Yeah, it's
good
overcrowded.
thought.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
You start
Yeah,
thinking
you like
about
overcrowded.
what you can't debate whether that's the definition
Let's
of water.
get
But you can't really give circular
There's
reasons.
more
Consider
people
water
than
that's
it
wet
can take.
because what's the definition of water? Like you can, you could do that.
Well, let's see if it meets the
And
test.
I guess
How does it meet the test?
First of all, it's not very interesting. It's just
Very
very
true.
The Dalai Lama was a great teacher.
So if
That's,
So there's more people that can take the subway system in New York.
Is it true that the services in New York has
I would change
maybe somebody else can take?
I'd say that the
Is
Dalai
that a
Lama was
true
a great
statement?
teacher.
So I think that the thing there is that
Now I think you're getting
Is
to
this true of
A U.
Only in
Russia.
Saudi,
so it's true. Doesn't say it has to be.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that
Or-
teacher.
It's definitely true of what?
If you need like
Yes.
learning,
If it doesn't have to be absolutely all of the time, yes.
let's come up with
Which is why he was
let's try
saying.
something more
Including the trees and the human, and if you average that out,
Trick was less
Uh,
than ultimate.
But you guys, but it's not a
The reason.
it was
It's
more
right,
dense than
right, right.
that. I mean, you can
It's the only
that
sort
slowly
of
lead.
emptiness, the lack of
There is
activity.
lead which sinks.
Once you
The
have
easiest
that,
way to find directories is
Blind
every
average
sentence
volume
is
reason to
New York, Manhattan, New York.
you can function as any nominal man who will always have room for debate. And then it becomes the debater.
Like the glasses on
You
the
know, dealing with
You need
social
less
of the other issues.
Sure, you're talking
Yeah,
about
it's not a,
They
it's
come
not a
up
very
with-
tasty
They're
vegetable.
coming to a close. So, this is green, road one, overcrowded New York system.
Yes.
Three, then two,
The way that it works is
rush hour.
Because I mean,
Yes.
Yes.
And then it's not
So,
body.
because the rest
three, not two,
Elaborate on the reason.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, I see, then we're solid.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
Because
She's
there is.
studying philosophy.
You're right,
So
there is
there's more people than it can take.
much.
Wait,
Alright, I'm gonna bring it back. I said 1 minute.
the way that it works.
Alright, guys, I wanna hear some busy correct reasons. Come back.
So how much
You
work
have to
does
ring
it
the bell.
displace and what's the weight of what is placed?
I don't wanna ring the bell.
Well,
Come back, come back.
it's kind of like a state.
That's really displacement.
And the reason is the explanation of that state. It's kind of like
Yeah,
a.
we
just
just
see a
practice
difference
that.
in our
Right.
practice.
You know.
Yes, it is.
It's good to
So we
have
say,
the ability to,
consider the
whether
New
you
York City
are
stuff.
interested in.
It's overcrowded in
Actually,
rush
you
hour
have to go by
because there are more
volume
people
of
than
the
it can
air.
take.
So know this.
Yeah.
The human
Something we already do.
flow,
And
even
so,
though
like,
human might be
really
heavier than the water.
Yeah,
so this is
better
the average of
It's
the
very
Yeah,
close.
we're
space
gonna
And
do
we haven't
that.
made that for
I hear you
So
about
you
that.
would say,
The point of
consider
this
the
is not
subway
to
system
conform,
in
it's to
rush hour.
streamline the
It's overcrowded.
process.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's
Because
to make it
9
more
million
efficient.
people
I
live
think
in
it sits
the
here
island of
thinking all the
Manhattan.
time.
Feel like
Unless you exhale.
Well, actually, only one person.
It should, it
Just
should.
around neutral point.
Rush hour to sometimes.
It should. I mean, with practice.
That's cool.
Okay, guys,
It's overcrowded.
come back.
That's cool. Either for the
Yeah, solid steel, it would
the
sink.
assertion.
I wanna hear some
You have
reasons.
to average out the volume of the air and the steel.
Here, if you want to give away candy to people that do good
Whoever,
answers.
whoever comes up with the correct reason gets one of these things that get stuck in your teeth.
Because.
All right.
And so,
Okay, let's go to subject and an assertion.
What's that?
That's a subject and an assertion.
Consider you. As soon as you pay attention to me, you get candy. You want to pay attention to me because I have candy. That's a 3-part logical statement. Okay. Do you guys want to go first? Okay.
we decided that broccoli was an organic substance.
All right, hold on. One. Give me the
Broccoli.
Consider broccoli. Say.
Broccoli.
Consider broccoli.
It's an organic substance.
Organic substance. As opposed to inorganic, right? Not as opposed to
an
pesticide.
inorganic substance, I guess, yes.
Okay.
It's a vegetable.
Why? Because it's a vegetable?
say because it grows.
Because it grows. You want to give that one?
Because it, or you could say, you could get fancy and say because it grows and then it rots.
Because it grows. Okay, all right, I'm cutting it off. Because it grows and rots.
That's good. That's good, yeah. It grows and rots.
Okay, so let's do the first test. Javier, can you
So-
state for me the first test?
The first test is what does broccoli always grows and rots? Is that the question?
Is
Yes.
it true of broccoli that it grows and rots?
Yes, it is true. I would believe it is.
Yeah, so it passes the first test.
Yes, it does.
Awesome.
Duh.
Yeah. Duh. Okay, Cliff, does it pass the second test? No, not if three, then two.
Yeah.
3, then 2.
Right.
No.
So you're saying,
Things that grow and rot are not organic substances necessarily?
Huh? Did I inspire you?
Yes.
hold on.
Give
She
me an
always gets me
example of
thinking.
something that grows and rots, it's not an organic substance.
So in a debate, I was debating you, and you said Kyakumanju. I'd be like, so you can give me an example of something that grows and rots that's not an organic substance?
Crystal grows.
But doesn't rot.
What did you
But
say?
Crystal said
But-
rot.
Does it rot?
doesn't rot.
Yes.
Rot.
I think I would have to agree. It will decay eventually, right?
Put it in water, it's a salt crystal, it's going to decay.
That's not the same thing as rot.
Well, yeah, you probably
We'd have to
right,
agree
but
on
you need to
rotting.
define it, and we're not going to agree on it.
Alright, so
Rotting is a specific process.
See,
not
that's the
specific
thing is
thing.
now everything grows because you keep redefining terms, and yeah,
Yeah.
you can redefine
No, I
it,
think his
but there's nothing wrong
Kyakumanju
with
was
that.
good. I think it's good. And your original, okay, let's try your original,
See, Rachel's what you did, you threw the worst out.
because it's a vegetable.
Good job, Rachel.
Okay.
Compassion.
Does that pass the second and third test?
Yeah.
Because any vegetable is an organic substance, right? I can't think of any vegetable that's not an organic substance.
McDonald's.
What'd you say? McDonald's?
It's not a vegetable.
Oh, McDonald's hash browns? Yeah, that's a mineral.
Technically.
Alright, so this is pretty good. I think this is the correct reason. And I think those are good catch, crystals. Cool. Next. Who wants to go next?
We'll go next.
Okay,
Nobody wants to go with you.
go ahead.
So consider the New York City subway.
Let's get to
Sorry, the New York City subway system.
Alright.
This is important. It's overcrowded sometimes.
Sometimes.
It's organic because it rots.
Overcrowded sometimes.
Because there is more people than it can take.
Because, what do you mean there? Because there are more people on the subway?
There is more people in New York than this New York City subway can take.
Because-
sometimes. Really, the first statement is it's overcrowded at rush hour.
Hold on. At rush hour, there are more people.
On the system, I think. Yeah.
On the system.
Yeah, not just in the
Sorry,
city.
Not
Yeah.
on the city, on the system.
You know, in the system?
Sorry, we didn't fit the whole city.
Yeah, I think they're saying in the system, not in New York City.
Thank you.
Yeah.
More
sorry.
people are using it.
My bad.
Using it.
Isn't that kind of, that's kind of circular.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what we thought too.
Yeah, it's kind of a circular.
Water is wet because it's wet.
Yeah. I would say that it's kind of circular. You're saying it's overcrowded because it's overcrowded, basically. I mean, this is getting a little bit more subtle, but this is, in a sense, it's the reason it's overcrowded. Like that's describing like a feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is describing the reason.
Exactly, the
So-
assertion and the reason.
Okay, so let's run the three tests. Greg, can you run the first test?
New York City subway system is crowded.
No, the first test
Yeah.
is the reason true of the subject.
Are there more people using the subway?
Yeah, there are more people using New York City subway system than they can handle.
Wait,
Good.
I disagree. I just don't know what to say.
You're going to say talk about Drew, right? You're saying it doesn't pass the first test?
I'm saying this is
Yeah.
the first test.
So say the whole thing. You don't have to say it in Tibetan. Just say it's not true of, or you know what I mean?
Well,
That's the exercise that we're doing here, by the way. It's like try to
You have to say
try to
it's
say
not.
in words.
It's not true of the subway system that there are more people using it than it can handle because
Good.
it's still functioning.
Good.
Right.
Okay, so then you'd say talk about Drew.
How come?
So you're saying that
Wait, no. Isn't that for the last two?
That's talk about Drew.
Yeah, you're right. Talk about Drew.
Talk about Drew is for the if
This is first.
if 3 is not
It's
true
not
of
true.
1, then you say talk
Oh,
about
okay.
Drew.
I drew the last
Talk about Drew.
one.
you're saying that
She's a good point.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
that doesn't mean
Because
that
it functions doesn't mean that it's functioning optimally.
yeah, it doesn't mean
Right.
it doesn't have to work.
Right. It doesn't mean that it's not.
I would say that this debate, the attacker would have to restate this because
Yeah.
it can handle it.
Yeah.
It actually.
Well, as the person standing in the platform after 3 trains, whether it's being handled or not.
What?
It's kind of subjective. Did it get you where you were
That's
going?
happened to me in Mexico City, but it never happened
Did
in
it,
New York
did it
City.
ultimately get you where you were going? Did it
At
get
what
you-
time did it get you where you were going?
What time did you need to be there and how much
2
time?
hours earlier than I got there.
How much time did you give yourself to get there?
Well, enough for
That's
a
always the question.
for a New York City
How much
subway
is
that should
enough?
be functioning.
Oh, that's a little bit subjective.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. Then we'd have to go back and agree on terms. Like,
Right.
what does it mean for it to be able to handle it? So then we'd start. So this is what I was going to get to after this part, but I'll just describe it for you a little bit here. So let's say somebody says talk Majur, right? Just say that. Let's say that somebody says that 3 is not true of 1. Let's say that somebody says, in this case, sorry, what's your name?
Rachel.
Rachel says, there are not more people using the New York City subway system than it can handle, right? You gotta say it like that too when you're saying, like, there are not more people using it than it can handle. You gotta like try to make the other person feel confused. That's what they do. That's how we help each
Just
other.
snap. Too.
Yeah.
You just snap.
Well, you can snap if you're too lazy to. But actually, the defender would be the one to say that, so you don't have to do either of the gestures. You just say it as if the attacker is such an idiot for saying it. Like that's how you gotta do it.
No.
Like, there are not. How could you even say there are more people using the New York City subway system than it can handle? Like, really? You know? Like, all right, guy. Okay. Then, often what the attacker would do in that situation, and this is how the flow of the debate starts to happen. You know, and it's a little bit more complicated than I think we really need to get into much in this class.
Right.
But I'll just kind of show you so that you have that in your minds. So then the attacker would typically take the reason and make it the assertion. So they want to prove that to you about the subject.
Right.
Like, you don't accept that that's true of that. Okay. So this is the flow. Now I'm describing the flow of the debate. Okay. Then 3 becomes 2.
Right.
So then I'm going to offer you another syllogism. Consider the New York subway system. You. Consider the New York City subway system. Like, you. Consider the New York City subway system.
Okay.
There are so more people using it than it can handle because Javier was 2 hours late for his appointment. I'm offering you, so I gave you this as the assertion, and I gave you a new reason.
Right.
And then you're free to analyze that syllogism with the 3 tests. Because I would have to say because when Javier was using the New York City subway system, he was 2 hours late. And then you could also say,
You can say top
Siapa
100.
ah,
Is that the right one?
Captain
Yeah.
Majung, so say
No.
it, say the whole thing.
It's not pervasive.
Don't say that. Say it. I shouldn't even have said that. Don't say it's not pervasive. Say, just because Javier was 2 hours late for his appointment,
That doesn't mean.
doesn't mean that there are more people using it than it can handle.
Right, but that is
Right.
not the right reason.
What?
It's not a good
It's
excuse for
that reason does not prove that assertion.
Right.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So don't ever say it doesn't pervade or there's no pervasion. That's what we're trying to avoid here. That's the literal translation of Captain Majung.
And then it gets really complicated.
Uh-huh.
Because then you have to prove that Javier being 2 hours late
Right, and
is
on and
somehow
on and
really
on.
the fault of the subway.
And
not
on.
Javier's fault or something.
Yeah.
Nothing personal.
It's funny. I mean, actually, at that point, I would say, like, consider Javier being 2 hours late for his appointment. I would make that the subject.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And the assert, or
Right,
it
yeah.
is the fault of the New York City subway system. And then come up with a new reason why that should be so. And that's how the attacker has to think. And that's why debate is hard,
Or you have to
because the
start-
attacker has to kind of have some of these things thought out
Yeah,
ahead of
you
time.
might start with consider Javier. It wasn't Javier's being late wasn't Javier's fault because Javier left 5 hours early for the appointment.
Right. There's all the other things that you can bring into that debate.
In the process of the debate, as you go through these arguments, does the attacker then have to repeat all the prior arguments
No.
when he makes his point? Or
Oh, I do. But like, I mean, yeah, a lot of times you really want to show them
The
you gotta show-
pathway to.
Like, oh,
Visually
yeah, you'd be like,
back
so you
to
do
the
agree.
original.
You know, like, so you do agree that Javier's being late was the fault of the subway system being more people. I don't know.
Which therefore means that the subway can't handle the blah blah blah.
Right.
And then you have to go, is that part of this final debate?
Well,
The
yeah,
attacker
'cause-
has to go back to the original proposition.
You would,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then the defender has to agree.
Yes, you'd show them that they agree because they accept all these other things.
Right.
They're like, so you, I would like to use a simpler example, at least a less wordy example, and then I can show you how that flow would go.
So that's
But
why-
yes, actually,
That's why
your
they're so long.
yeah,
Yeah.
but your question is correct. Like that is what would happen. I would prove to you one thing. Once I get to the point where I get you to accept something, then I will show you how that contradicted what you said before.
Yeah.
You know, and once you accept that, if that was the whole point of the debate, then I would say "ta," which means gotcha. It literally means like shame face or something. It comes from it means like you should be ashamed of like your stupidity.
And we do all this without aggression.
Yeah, kind
Completely
of.
without it.
If you can imagine a bunch of young men together in a place and they've never seen women and there's no aggression there.
Right. Yes. Well, it's not right. Yes.
These guys are pretty young actually.
Yeah.
They're just debating.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear somebody else's. And we'll see if we can go through the flow a little bit, it's cool. Otherwise, we'll do it another time together because it's just, we only have 10 minutes left. Were you about that?
Yeah, we have a
Oh, okay. Let's hear it. Let's hear it, Clay. Everybody's waiting.
A cork floats in water because it is less dense than water.
So give me what's the subject?
A cork. Consider the cork.
Okay, I said a cork, is that okay?
It floats in water. Because it is less dense than water.
You'll have an easier time proving it the other way around.
What?
You'll have an easier time proving it the other way around. You could say it's less dense than water because it floats.
Well, it works
I don't
either
think
way,
it
doesn't it?
matters.
Oh,
sure. Either way.
But it's easier to prove that it floats than to prove that it's less dense. I mean,
Don't all
Okay.
three of them need to be correct? Like,
Let's just let's do the 3 tests. I think this is a correct reason.
Oh, sure.
Let's examine it. You want to give us the first test there?
Is it true that a cork is less dense than water?
Is it true?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any problem with that? Okay. Do you want to try the second test?
If the cork is less dense than water, then it will float in the water.
So you're telling me that all things that are less dense than water will float in water? All things, is that what you're saying?
Go, Jacqueline, say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes! Little rocks.
And just for good measure, Ron, do you want to try to do the third test?
Difficulty with cork being
No,
less dense
for
than
that,
water.
Oh.
it means that if there's something that it's not floating in water, it has to be more dense than water.
Right. Is that true?
You have to think about it. It's my idea. You have to be.
Everything that's less dense in water will float in water or does float.
You could say would.
I have difficulty with.
I mean, I feel
This
like
sounds like the Monty Python.
we could get really into semantics here.
All gases are less dense in water, but they don't float.
Oh, that's a good point.
Not
The bubble-
What was
But
that?
they float.
It's called a bubble, and a bubble does float.
Yeah, he's got a point. A gas in the water would float in the water.
Well, the surface of the bubble is denser.
Hold on a second.
Float to the surface.
I have difficulty with 3 because I can put my hand right into water and have absolutely no problem with it. Whereas cork is kind of solid and tangible.
Well, density is a specific property, right? It has to do with
Okay, well, I mean, how do I know if cork is less dense than water without like some equipment to measure the cork?
we'd have to measure the density.
I
The
can.
way we normally do that is by putting it in the water.
Right. Which
Yeah.
kind of proves the statement.
For example, you can think of animals that are naturally floating in water, but because they can dive, they go underwater, and that's an idea. Or something which has maybe magnetic force that can pull it down, and things like that. They can have things like that.
So this statement is a correct reason if it's qualified with a lot of other things. It's a correct statement that I believe it passes the 3 tests.
Duck floats
A
in
cork
water, but
floats.
it's not less dense than water.
Are you sure?
Duck is less dense than water.
Yeah, I think that's why.
That's what I love about the Monty Python example.
Duck is not less dense than water.
Yes, it is,
Like
'cause
they
it's
said,
like
a
wood.
duck is as dense as a duck.
Which is less dense than water.
No.
So I suppose we
'Cause
have to
it
get
floats.
a discussion about what do we think density means.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're
So do you
talking
want to give a
about-
definition of density? You seem like a physicist of some sort.
Cliff the physicist.
The weight of an object at a particular volume would be its density.
Right.
So when you're talking about the density of the duck, it's how many square centimeters of space the duck would occupy at one weight compared
Right.
to water. If it's less weight at that volume, then it's less dense. So a balloon would be less dense than water. And gas would float on water, without a doubt. If one way you could look at it, if you had 2 gases, say helium, and I'm trying to think of a dark gas, but if you colored oxygen somehow, you would see a layer of oxygen, and then there would be helium above it. You'd see it floating on the water. If there was a wave, you'd see it actually floating.
It's true.
For example, mercury
It's not
is
floating, it's
is
just
so
above it.
Well, that's
Well, but
Well,
right,
that's
you
floating
can
in
floating
means.
underwater.
So how do I know
Oh,
what the
floating,
density
floating.
is of the thing without
I mean,
measuring it somehow?
For example,
It goes to the
sky
higher.
float
Well,
over the
density
ocean.
is a measurement.
Yeah, more or less.
How do you do
It's
that?
less dense than the ocean. If
It just
if
told you
sky
it's
were
the
ocean, it would be under
size
the
with a
ocean.
weight.
In a sense, it is floating.
Volume.
It's not.
But it's not by our standard definition of floating, because we think of floating.
Yeah.
Having to do with
It's
surface.
more dense than water.
But actually, the sky does touch the surface of the ocean, just not in the way that you think of.
I was going to use the moon as an example. Right.
That's orbiting. That's a little different.
But for example,
that's
for example, for the gas thing, mercury is not actually much heavier than metal, but still, if you have
So it's really floating there, it's the air.
if you take
Yeah.
like, I don't know, a
Density
tube
of the
made
average
out
of the whole.
of iron, and you put it on an ocean made out of mercury,
when you scoop
the
it-
iron will float. So it might be
Yeah, that's
even at the
true.
level of gas, mercury will be still
Because
heavier
mercury is
than
denser.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a very, 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 it's much denser than any, than most
Mercury.
metals.
Yeah.
Even though it's liquid.
Well, I think this is pretty good. I think it's the correct reason.
When-
But
when it was-
you could get into a discussion about what density means, but we did. And I yes, go ahead.
In these Tibetan debates, the subjects though, are they limited to theological subjects?
Definitely not theological.
What are the subjects? What subjects are debatable?
There's so many different things. The classic Buddhist debate, let's give into as an example for kids, is like, and this has to do with an axiom that all Buddhists already accept, right? Consider sound. And this is actually a classic debate. I believe it comes from a classic debate with Hindus. Consider sound. It's impermanent because it's produced. So this is the kind of things that so now you're trying to prove that because there's a Hindu school that said that there was an infinite, everlasting sound Om, right? And it's just pervades the entirety of existence as the sound Om. Now you just use pervades. Okay, right? And so the Buddhist comes along and says, consider sound. It's impermanent. It's not everlasting. And I'm debating you, and you say, why do you say that? I said, because it's produced. And I don't expect you guys to just accept this, but like, if you're in a Buddhist university or something like that, everybody knows that everything that's produced is impermanent and changes. Okay? So there's a lot of discussion about stuff like that, and karma.
How do you prove the sound is produced?
Here, I got one for you. I want to hear theirs first.
So the philosophical sense.
What?
I'm trying to, what is the content of the debate? That's what I'm trying to.
The content. So that's an example of the content of the debate. Or,
Can one monk walk up to the other and say, consider broccoli?
okay, I got one for you.
Do they do that? Or is
No, only the little kids do that. Like, they play with the language.
So it's not really.
We're doing it just because we're learning, and it's too complex to like debate emptiness right now.
Right.
But like,
I guess what I'm trying to ask is it the purpose just to sharpen their mind, or is it to clarify
no, it's to clarify what they're studying.
what they're studying?
What they're studying. So if the monks are studying the Abhidharma Kosha, they're probably debating the Abhidharma Kosha. If the monks are studying the perfection of wisdom, which is mostly like what they're studying for many years, and they're debating topics of perfection of wisdom.
That's what
You
I'm
know,
trying to ask, So this is just the form of the debate, not the content.
Yeah, totally. Right. And this is the way the young monks learn the form by debating colors.
Colors.
Yeah. There's like and they play with the semantics. Like there's like little tricks, and they debate colors. You can see all about it in this book by Daniel.
Could you give me an example of how you would debate a color? I'm fascinated by it. Just a little. This is not clean.
Since I'm teaching you a more formalized system that relates with three-part things, I'll just do a quick debate that doesn't necessarily involve all three parts. A white horse is white. Oh, so a horse is a color. A horse is not a color. A horse is a horse, right?
Right.
So a white horse is not white.
Well, that's almost Cohen.
Yeah, it's just like silly stuff, and it's just semantics. I did that to my friend when we went to Boston. He got so mad at me. I was like, I'm just playing, Anyway. No, he was like, well, you. So you get a camera. What's yours?
Consider a frog. It is an animal
Because it rots.
because it is an amphibian.
Was what?
Amphibian.
Because it is an amphibian. Amphibian.
Well, that's good.
Yes, that's a perfect example of a correct reason. And so the easiest way to find one is to use sets and subsets. This is like the easiest way you're going to find a correct reason. And there's a huge study of Buddhism called Chi Chedrak, where it's basically the study of sets and subsets, and it helps you to realize how your mind categorizes the world. So thank you for giving that example. Because we start, so let's run the 3 tests. And this is, I'm doing this over and over again because I want you guys to get in the habit of running these tests over things, especially the second. Greg, can you do the first test again?
Is a frog an amphibian? Yes.
Okay, good. A frog is an amphibian. Okay.
Well, that's, is 1 true or 3? It's the other way around.
Is an amphibian
A frog.
a frog?
Yeah. Is it true
Is
that
it true
frogs?
of a frog that it's an amphibian?
Yeah.
He was correct the way he just stated it in a shorter way. But is it true of a frog? Is a frog an amphibian?